Hi everyone, welcome to the latest episode of the Mental Brew Podcast. Today we've a very, very special guest, René Meulensteen. So René, how are you?
I'm very well, Dennis. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
No bother at all. Thank you for coming on. So I'm obviously a huge United fan. You would have had time at the club. We're going to get into that, I suppose. But more importantly, for yourself and I suppose just for the listeners, why do you do what you do?
Why do I do what I do? Oh, that's a good one. I have to go back all the way to Holland, to where I was born, and from a very young age, I was affected by the virus called football. I come from a tiny little village in Holland, place called Beugen, which is caught right in the middle of the big triangle cities of Nijmegen, Eindhoven, and Venlo, close to the German border. So, as you know, Holland has got a very good football infrastructure. Every little village has got its own club, great facilities. That's where I grew up, and I was 16 when I started coaching at my local club because a local guy, I was always on the football field anyway, so he said, "Can you help me out?" And after 2 or 3 weeks, he had to pack it in because of his work, so I took over, and I've never stopped ever since. So it's just the love for the game. I couldn't see any future for me, outside football, and I'm so happy that I managed to do what I do.
That's amazing. And like you're at the absolute peak, the pinnacle of, we'll say, football. You've been at the top in terms of being a coach and a manager. Like, is there times you have kind of look back and pinch yourself? Because you obviously got there in ability and knowledge, and you obviously build personal relationships. But have you kind of looked back and been kind of pinch yourself going, wow, I started this, because of a passion for the game and I got to the very top?
Absolutely. I think you have to. I'm the kind of person, Dennis, that counts my blessings every day. You have to. A lot of people get caught in the race every day to wanting more and more and more without realizing what they already have.
Yeah.
And a lot of happiness for a lot of people is already what they possess, but they don't see it.
Yeah, I'm really good. I like that.
And I realize every day that I'm so independent in who I am and what I do. I love everything that I do. I really feel I've never worked a day in my life because I was able to make my hobby my job. And if you see, like you said, the journey that I've had coming back where I came from, if I would have told my friends there and then, listen, one day I'll be coaching, I'll be the first team coach of Manchester United, they would have put me in a loony home. They would have said, you just go and register yourself there. But everything happens for a reason, Dennis. So it didn't come by chance. I really invested a lot of time, a lot of money. You need to get your experiences in coaching. You need to get your knowledge. And I was lucky to find the right people on my path. Will Curver, the founder of Curver Coaching, has been so instrumental to me because I believed in his philosophy and his vision about developing young, talented, creative, attacking players. And that is one of the reasons why Sir Alex Ferguson brought me to Manchester United.
That's amazing. That's class. And like when you got that call, and we won't delve into anything straight about one question before we do, but when you got that call from United to say, look, come here, we're interested in you, what was that feeling like?
Well, initially I didn't believe it because I was coach of Al Sadd at the time in Qatar.
Yeah.
One of the top clubs there, and they're doing actually pretty well. But I always had the ambition to go back into Europe, where the real football, obviously a lot of things have changed now in the Middle East and Asia. And as you know, the developments have been brilliant. But a guy called Dave Richardson, who I got to know through the courses I did in England, called me, and because I was coming over for a conference, and I was going to see Dave, and I was going to put some sessions on for different clubs. But he rang me and he said, "Listen, Les Kershaw, the academy manager at the time at Manchester United, has been in touch with me. They're looking for a technical coach. They couldn't find one in England, and I recommended you. Would you be able to have a chat with him?" I said, "Yeah, no problem at all." So I went over. I did the conference. I met up with Les and Jeff Watson, who was one of the scouts at the time. It was a really good conversation. I remember Les saying, "Listen, René, don't get too excited about it because Manchester United is like an oil tanker. Everything is so slow.
Yeah.
And this and that and the other." It says, "No rush. I've got still, more than half a season to go with El Sad and see where it comes. But thanks for the chat and da da da." But at the time, Dennis, I stayed at Dave Mackay's house, and Dave Mackay was obviously the former Spurs player, Scottish legend.
Yeah.
What a fantastic man he was. And I just told Dave that I met Les. I didn't say anything else, but just for him to be aware of it if he heard something.
Yeah.
Now, what I didn't know was that Dave rang Sir Alex Ferguson, and said, "Listen, Sir Alex, I believe that your academy manager is looking for a technical coach. I happen to know him. I've worked with him here in Qatar, and I can recommend him, as a coach, and as a person." So that put a lot of weight on the scale of Sir Alex Ferguson. And then I went back, and about a few weeks later, probably 2 or 3 weeks later, Dave rang me. And Dave, you have to understand, Dennis, the relationship that we had. Every time I saw Dave, he would always crack a joke first. You never knew whether you take him seriously.
Yeah.
He rang me up and he says, "That's Sir Alex Ferguson rang you." And I started laughing. And I says, No. As a matter of fact, I've just hung up on Prince Charles, at the time. And he says, No. He says, a little bitchy. He said, No. He says, "I've just rang him and he said he was going to ring you." He says, "But Dave, have you given him the right number? Because last time I saw you, I told you Qatar has added an extra 5 after the country code." "All right, that must be it then." Da, 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 da. Anyway, I'm sure he's going to ring you in the next 15 minutes. So I hang up, and indeed, within 10 minutes, the phone rang, and it was Sir Alex Ferguson. And it was weird,
Yeah.
I ran it, Sir Alex here, and off you go. And I
Yeah.
had a chat with him for about 20 minutes, and he told me about that Dave rang him, and that I had a chat with Les Kershaw, and that they were looking to that specific skill set in the development centers, etc. And then if I was able to come over at some point, and I said, "Yeah, I've got a gap in January. I can come then for a few days." And I did. I went for 5 days to Man United and met everybody, from Kath, the receptionist, to obviously at that time, Steve McLaren was the first team coach. And I knew Steve from my full batch coaching course. So that was good. I had a point of contact there. And Bill Bezic was still there. I remember him. So I had 5 good days. I put a lot of sessions on various age groups, and basically, so Alex was saying at the end of it to Les Kershaw, give the man a job. So that was it.
Wow. That's mad. And like you've been in the game now a massive amount of time, so you've seen it all, right? But for you, in terms of a coach and being a high performer, like how would you describe, I suppose, elite or high performance in your role?
In terms of like preparing the team, or
Yeah, just in terms of what you have to do, like.
Yeah, well, it's actually 2 ways, and I think there's always key parameters, I think, where you need to look at, Dennis, for one, a successful organization. That has to do obviously with the ownership first, and then the manager and the staff. And then you go to the team, which has got another parameters, which is you need to have the quality players to compete for the trophies that you want to compete for. So for Manchester United, that was very straightforward: Premier League, Champions League, FA Cup, basically every trophy on show. So the parameters of a team is you need to have the quality players. So within brackets, you need to have players with world-class qualities.
Yeah.
Or world-class qualities in itself. The first thing you have to expect from those players is to work hard and compete. Right? And behind those 2 words, that adds it all up, is to be able to work hard, they need to be physically fit. Right? So you need to have that in order. They need to be motivated.
Yeah.
They need to be committed to the course, etc. All those things add up to that. Number 3 is when you've got those players, those quality players, and they are prepared to work hard and compete, you then need to make sure they work together.
Yeah.
So teamwork and team spirit is vital. So good communication, respect for each other, all those things come into play.
Yeah.
If you got your quality players, they work hard and they work together, the next thing is then to devise a game plan that suits them. The strategies, the tactics, the style. put the right players in the right position, etc., etc. Revolving around the defending strategy, the attacking strategies, transitional strategies, set pieces, and everything that goes with it. The reason why a game plan comes on fourth position and not on second is the reason for me is that if you've got quality players and you've got a great game plan, but the players are not prepared to work hard or not work together, the game plan is useless.
Yeah.
But any team that is prepared to work hard and work together, even though they haven't got the best of game plans, it will still be a good team.
Okay.
A very difficult team to beat. That's why it's there. The other thing underneath that, number five, is the winning mentality. That is something that I grasped when the players, when I first came to Man United, and I saw the mentality of those players in training every day.
Yeah.
Bring the best out of each other, pushing them to the edge. It's all about winning, and winning mentality is it's a drive to compete. It's more than competing. It's finding that edge all the time, and it becomes part of the lifestyle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then the last but not least, it's the game revolves all around scoring goals and keeping clean sheets. Defending. So you need to look at your team and say, okay, how many goal scorers have you got in your team? How is the game plan designed to create as many chances as we got and score goals? And how is the game plan designed to not concede? So those are the parameters of a successful team and high elite performance team, what we had around Man United at my time.
Yeah.
If you zoom into the players specifically, and what I did was you then look at the players there, obviously the tactical, the qualities, because every player has a job to do, whether in attack or defense, or both. Multiple. But defenders have more an emphasis on defending, whereas attackers have more, an emphasis on attacking. But every player has a job to do in those two segments. And most of the time, they spend time in transition. So that's, from whether they win the ball back, they go into attack, or the otherwise. So the key then is for those players in their particular position is to dominate the 1v1 situation or the game situations that they're in.
Yeah.
So you can't wait when you're not in a 1v1 situation, you are more in a situation of, reading what's going in front of you. So to do that, to dominate that from a tactical point of view, the players need to have good awareness of what they are, their strengths and weaknesses, what positions do they play, what is expected for them when they're defending and what is attacking and in transition. But the next thing is understanding, right? So you need to bring the player from awareness to understanding. So when they are aware, let's say that Cristiano Ronaldo is a left winger, the next, does he understand what his job is defensively?
Yeah.
When we are looking the ball high up the pitch or whatever, does he understand his job in possession, when the ball is in certain areas of the pitch? So that's an important aspect. The other aspect is the physicality of it.
Yeah.
And if you analyze teams over the years of the last 30 years I think when strength and conditioning has become so much more important and everything that goes in it, the players nowadays are all having peak fitness.
Yeah.
And everything that supports that peak fitness, strength and conditioning, training, diet, sleep patterns, whatever it is, goes in that peak fitness. But there are 4 elements that you can tangibly see when you see players perform. You look at the pace.
Yeah.
Can somebody dominate the 1v1 with pace? Is he quicker than his opponent? His strength, especially in 1v1s, dual power. His stamina, can he play for 90 minutes and beyond?
Yeah.
Agility. So those are the 4 things from a physical aspect that also need to have a lot of attention. Then you look at the mental side of the game. All the players that you work with have all got their own personalities.
Yeah.
Right. But if you look at the world-class players all over the world, the one thing that they have in common is that they've got an enormous winning mentality.
Yeah.
When it's up in the pitch. And if you look at those world-class players, past and present, I do have to say that a lot of times the world-class label has been used too quick and too easy, because in my opinion, there's only a few. But over the years, over the last 30 years to 20 years, there's been a lot of really good players.
Yeah.
With world-class players. And they have that winning mentality, and that shows that they've won a lot of domestic prizes, a lot of domestic trophies, international trophies. And that winning mentality sees in their attitude. And when you see those players mentally, those are players with a strong personality. They play with a lot of confidence, a lot of self-belief. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and the last quality of a high performance a football player is the technical qualities, of course.
Mm.
And they're able to play the game properly. You need your basic skills.
Yeah.
You know, your passing, your receiving, your shooting, your crossing, your heading. But to be able to dominate the 1v1, you need to be able to understand what 1v1 situations can occur in a game. And there's only four. It depends where the opponent is.
Yeah.
Is he next to you on the side, and are you traveling in the same direction? Does he come at an angle? Is he behind you, or is he in front of you?
Mm.
And then you need to have the skills and the tools to dominate, you know, to outplay those opponents in that way. So those are the four aspects really that is like an X-ray of a, you know, like of an elite player: the tactical, the physical, the mental, and the technical. So I made a sort of an X-ray of all those players, you know, and I tried, and my main thing was at the time at Man United to try to implement that skill element with the specific positions they were playing.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And then if you then combine that together with, you know, the team qualities, that the team qualities under there and the players are underneath. You understand?
Yeah.
You know, but those were, like I said, the two main. If you look at really high performance teams, high performance players, those are the things that I used.
That's amazing. And even with yourself, or even like we say the people you've worked with in terms of coaching staff now, like what personal attributes that you have helped you get where you were? So forget your tactical ability now and your knowledge of football or soccer, right? What personal attributes do you feel helped you, I suppose, build a massively successful career?
I think as a coach, you need to be, you need to have some kind of a, you know, a confident way of going about things. You need to believe in yourself. I think I was a reasonably good communicator.
Yeah.
Players, you need to be able to inspire players, to motivate them, you know, to correct them at times, advise them in a manner that they are very receptive to it. I think from a player point of view, personally, although I've never played at the highest level, I technically was very, very good in terms of demonstrating any particular skill.
Yeah.
You know, at the time, because it's important that if you work with players and you say, listen, can you do this step over or this course turn or that, and you won't be able to demonstrate it yourself, or you're falling over the ball yourself, that doesn't give a good impression. So I think that helped me a lot, those things.
Yeah. And I'm working with Cork City Ladies at the moment as their kind of mental skills coach. I would have a background in GA, Gaelic football, in one of our national sports in Ireland. And this was the one word that was in my role that I were trying to develop in terms of the manager and stuff, whether it be with staff or whether it be with players, is accountability. Like, how difficult is it to hold someone to account, especially maybe a staff member who could be a first team coach in whatever role, but how hard is it to hold them accountable? So like, you see me talking to players when you're trying to you know, go through tactics, like how important is it to hold, you know, I suppose staff accountable, but also your players if they're not carrying out the tasks needed?
I think they need to understand the process. With us, with Manchester United, it was always just write one thing down here. Very clear what we wanted. The ambitions were very clear. You know, everybody understood what we wanted to achieve, you know, every season, winning the Premier League, go to the Champions, etc. With that comes expectations.
Yeah.
With expectations comes pressure. Yeah. Now the pressure becomes only pressure if it's not managed well.
Yeah.
And Sir Alex Ferguson was an absolute master in managing that brilliantly well. To meet those expectations, you need to meet your standards.
Yeah.
Players and staff.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can't get there. And to meet those standards, people need to take responsibilities.
Yeah.
Players and staff.
Yeah.
And with those responsibilities, because that's your job, that's your job, that's your job, that's where the accountability comes in. As long as it is transparent and people know what's expected from them and what they should be doing and what they should contribute, then it's not that difficult to say who's accountable for this.
Yeah.
So, you understand, it's the same if you set up a team defensively with defending a corner and you give them specific tasks, and then you look back to the corner and sometimes somebody's not doing the job. It's very simple because it's been clearly devised where you should be and what you should do.
Yeah.
Know your job, do your job. So that's the thing. And but with accountability, it sometimes comes over as a negative. I feel you also need to use accountability when things are going well.
Yeah.
Praise, because the biggest word, Sir Alex Ferguson said it many, many times whilst I was there. He says the two most important words for me to my staff and my players is well done.
Yeah.
And everybody responds to that. And I totally agree with that. I also feel that is in terms of working, I've always worked on my coaching and I've learned that so much that the experiences that I had where on certain coaching courses, the emphasis was always on the negative. And I never understood that. It's far better to concentrate on the positive for things that are going well and try to build on that. So I've never used the word change when I was working with a team or player. I would never say, listen, we need to change our system, or you need to change this in your game. I would always use the word add.
Okay.
Add more. Listen, guys, if we add this to our game, we become more unpredictable. We become better in going forward, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. If I add this to your game, I think you're going to become a more complete player. Yeah. Now, there's more. Everybody wants to know what it is.
Yeah.
And that is a way, and you are in that profession. And another word that goes with it is what I always felt, an enormous, strong line. And if players can understand that and use it to the benefit, is where the mind goes, the rest will follow.
Yeah.
If you set yourself clear targets, if you set yourself clear ideas of how you want to play and what you want to do and this and that and the other, and positive reinforcement, positive visualization, all those things, will help you to perform at your best.
And so even going back now, it can be United or it can be any game or team you're with, right? But like, you go back to a game where big game coming up and maybe the result didn't go your way. As we say, as coach, do you ever bring that home and we'll say kind of maybe wrongly, maybe you can look at yourself and go, geez, the training session this week wasn't good enough? Or like, have you ever kind of maybe look to blame yourself when necessarily it's not an individual's fault, it's more maybe a bad day or it may be?
I think hindsight is a great thing. I don't think yesterday Xabi Alonso expected the game to go as it did.
Yeah.
But it did.
Yeah.
And I don't think there was anything wrong in the preparation. I think what Atalanta did really well, they anticipated on what was going to happen, and they've analysed Leverkusen really, really well. And they came out with a game plan where Leverkusen struggled with.
Yeah.
First 45 minutes for sure, but they never really got out of it. And Atalanta took the chances. Now, we've had that, and especially in certain games, because if you're in the middle of games, the thing is this, we had a very clear way of how we wanted to play and what the parameters are. And sometimes, you run into a bit of a, little bit of a bad day at the office, and you don't win, losing at home to Manchester City 6-1. But that's in the middle of the season. And in the season, it's all important that you always keep an eye out for the trends. It's all about identifying trends.
Okay.
And losing to Man City 6-1 wasn't a trend.
Yeah.
It was a free game where City obviously were capitalizing on our left-hand side from a defensive point of view, their right-hand side. And sometimes you've got games that every chance you create goes in.
Yeah.
Then we got a man sent off just after halftime, Johnny Evans.
Yeah.
And every chance after that, bang, bang. And
Yeah.
before you know, you were 3-0 down, you know, and then I think we managed to come back to 3-1, and then still the whole Old Trafford thought we could turn it around with 10 men. In hindsight, yeah, we should have locked it up, because goal difference, Sir Alex Ferguson always says, can make a massive difference, and it bit us in the bum. The same thing with the Barcelona Champions League finals, you know. You know, but the problem with those games was that you had your time to prepare for it, but it's a one-off game, and then after the game, there's nothing. It's done. You know what I mean? It's the last game of the season. And Barcelona was, if you look at both finals differently, I think, you know, in Rome, the stats were fairly even in terms of possession, you know, 50-50 or something, or 50-45. And again, we had a strong start. We should have scored. We didn't. They took the first chance, you know, and they were a team still in progress of becoming a really, really good team. They were already a good team, but still, you know, I think the team at Wembley was even better.
Yeah.
You know, and then again, we never knew that it was going to be easy. We knew where our chances lay, and 1-1 going into the dressing room was good. It was a great score, no problem at all, because we felt as long as we can get through the first 20-25 minutes of the second half, because that was a trend that we identified with Barcelona, and that's where they were going for the kill.
Yeah.
And we didn't manage that well. That's the only part, I think, in that game we didn't manage well, because if we would have gone through that with still 1-1 on the board, would have had more players to come in to make an impact than they had.
Yeah.
If they would have made substitutions, they would have weakened their team. Because, you know, whereas we had players like Scholes and Nani and who else that we had on the bench who could come in and change things. But those are things, I think, you know, you'll always reflect. You have to do, you know, because otherwise you're in the wrong job. But it's also very important that within that reflection, you don't start to overthink things and try to make things up that are not there.
Yeah.
That's why I say, listen, is it an incident or is it a trend? If it's a trend, we have to do something about it.
Really good.
Right. You know, if 4 or 5 games on a trot, we lose games by defensive corners. Well, do something about it, guy, because something is not working.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if you lose 2 goals or 3 goals in one game, it's not a trend. It's an incident.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so
absolutely,
it's important that you don't get too picky, because otherwise, you know, you're moving away from really what it's all about. And like I said, we with United, we were a very confident outfit. We had a squad with so much quality, so much experience. Our tactical analysis and preparations was always 80-20, 75-25. And what I mean by that is it was all about 80 to 75% about us.
Yeah.
You know, and 20-25% about the opposition, making sure that our players knew, okay, who we up against, what is their style of play, what are the characteristics, what are the key players, how can they hurt us, but more than anything, how 80% is how will we win the game.
Yeah.
But that was the emphasis all the time.
Yeah.
And that shone through the training sessions during the week.
And when you're planning your training sessions, like, would you do that over the summer with specific teams in mind, or is it something you do the night before, or is it a week in advance? How did you kind of do that?
In preparation in the pre-season, you obviously I had a very good cooperation with Tony Strudwick, the strength and conditioning guy. We had, you know, previous, you know, chats about, okay, what does he want to get out of week 1, week 2, leading into the travel, blah 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 blah. And we always used to try as much as we could, you know, trying the physical aspects, you know, within a game situations, and everything else, what needed to be done physically, then Tony would top that up.
Okay.
And we would always work initially from big numbers, big distances.
Yeah.
To medium distances, medium numbers, to really small and really intensive and really high competitive. And then combine that into, you know, in introduce that into the 11v11. That was more the pattern. But when you get through the season, because of the games that come thick and fast, there was such a what do you call it? A mixture of squad I was working with at times.
Yeah.
In the beginning of the season was a bit easier, but when all those games came, and then you had sometimes an influx of good young and upcoming players from the reserves coming in, we operated on basically three different groups within the training. Dennis, we had, like say, the very young players.
Yeah.
The middle group, which was the high energy group, that meant that nearly they can train all the time.
Yeah.
Then the group that needed extra attention, the players above 30.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So like say the Gigsies and the Nevilles and and Scholesy. So we would manage them towards the next performance. So when we would say, okay, certain training sessions, the young group could always be fit in, with the high energy group, so they can do this.
Yeah.
This group will do, they do this and this, but then they step out.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Okay.
To make it sure that we maximize their rest and recuperation and be ready for the next performance, because at the end of the day, that's all what matters.
Absolutely.
And the sessions then, we're very much focused on predominantly keep building on how we want to play, and like I said, United was, Sir Alex brought me into his office when he promoted me to first team coach, Dennis, and basically on 3 flip charts, he explained me how we wanted United, how he wanted United to play. He said to me, he said, listen, René, he says, I don't have to tell you anything about the sessions and everything, and I don't want to get involved with it. It's brilliant. It's good. Players, it's funny. He said, but if I close my eyes, this is how I see United perform.
Yeah.
So, and he had it on a flip chart, and he said, from a defensive point of view, I want us to be able to press really high with a high line, very aggressively. Sometimes I want us to drop a little bit in a certain block, and we press a certain area or a certain player. At times, we probably have to defend from deep, no problem at all, making sure that we nullify crosses and we don't give space away behind. But it's all about try to regain and retain and counter.
Yeah.
So all those things were written down and all that. And he obviously went to the next page, and it says possession. When we got possession and key, it always has to have a purpose. The most important aspect within possession is rhythm. The best teams in the world, they have rhythm, and good teams, they create rhythm, they maintain rhythm. And what I mean by that, when you build up from the back, you've got a different kind of rhythm. When you get higher up the pitch and the pitch get more congested, you need to be able to switch to a very quick, fluid one touch rhythm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So one touch and movement. And there was a few golden rules in that possession. Was one, think forward, look forward, play forward. So the aim was always to try to break lines.
Yeah.
Folks hated it for the ball to be played back.
Okay.
You only go square to go forward.
Okay.
Going back is the last option.
Okay.
So think about it. If players are constantly being affected by that, think forward, look forward, play forward, the solutions are going to be looking much more vertical than horizontal. So breaking lines all the time. The other thing was, the other golden rule was, when players have good time in the ball, a lot of time that happened with centre backs or left backs or central midfielders, time in the ball is forward runs.
Yeah.
Players coming in the pockets. So 2 opposite movements.
Yeah.
So we had both options. We can play people depending on where the defensive line is of the opposition. We can play in the pockets, or we go over the top. And then it was all about, in the final third, obviously, creating overloads, maximizing 1v1 situations. And then the last, and obviously both flip charts, defend and possession, is obviously based on a very quick transition in both ways. And then the last flip chart, he turned around and he said, there was the attacking principles, and he said, I want United to attack with pace, power, penetration, and unpredictability.
Yeah.
And I want you to install those 4 things every single training session.
Yeah. Okay.
What we do, whether it's a condition game, whether it's a finishing drill, whether it's those elements, I want you to see back.
Yeah.
If you look back to United at that particular time, and when we were at our best, that is exactly what you saw.
Yeah.
Pace, power, penetration, and unpredictability. And that unpredictability was, again, that skill element that I wanted to introduce. Players had the ability to go past people, or creating overloads with 2v1s, overlaps, underlaps, to create that unpredictability. So, yeah, that was basically, for me, a very simple, almost handbook of how I ran my session. So a lot of that was based on those principles.
Yeah.
And then if I felt that I needed to integrate certain elements from the opposition, I would pick that up and then would facilitate that into any condition game or any drill that I thought is relevant.
Yeah, that's massive insight, especially for soccer coaches listening. I was reading Manchester Evening News, and I read it 2 or 3 times a week to keep up with the latest news, maybe transfers or club goings on, right? There was a particular article or talking about maybe Eric Ten Hag getting replaced, right? And they had a list of managers down, and I think at the time Jose had said that, look, he'd love to come back to Man United. And my question now is around adaptability. But I suppose the example I want to give you is, I suppose in the article, the reporter basically said that, Jose is like a busted flush in terms of hasn't adapted to the game. His style is still very much his style from when he was at Chelsea and unbelievably successful. Now, I find that really strange because he's a manager at the top level as well, right? But how important is it to be adaptable to the current trends within the game for yourself as a coach? You've been a manager, you've been a coach, to stay, I suppose, up to date in current trends. Like, does that involve tweaking your philosophy, or is it very much similar to where you were with United, and have things to say, have to stay kind of the same, really?
No, I think you do. You always keep looking at different things, and I think you got always innovators in football. They can only be innovators because to be an innovator, you need to be brave.
Yeah.
And because you're in the result business, you can only be brave if you know you get the support, but more than anything, you get the performances and the results.
Yeah.
Because the results will back you. If you don't get the results, all the things you want, and you can be innovative as you want, and you can be this and that and the other one, but if the results don't stack up, the owners get, they get nervous, they panic, you're out the door. Now, Pep Guardiola has always been able to be an innovator because he's worked at the best clubs in Europe.
Yeah.
Barcelona, Bayern Munich, and obviously with City was slightly different, but they had all the environment and the resources in place to still be an innovator and do, because he has tweaked so many different tactical things that have been copied, by so many players, inverted fullbacks, or, with Barcelona it was always, the wingers coming inside and it was the fullbacks over the top.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, there's in that respect, there's no secrets anymore. The one thing that I would never move away from, because I do still think that is still an underlying aspect of the game that is not being addressed enough, is that skill development aspect. Players to be able to dominate the 1v1, and that will never change. That was in the time that Di Stefano, Puskas, Beckenbauer, Cruyff, Pele, Maradona, all of them were playing. It was because they had those qualities, they possessed those qualities. And again, still in this modern era, there's hardly any time being spent on the execution of those skills to dominate the 1v1. So no matter what tactical system you come up with, at the end of the day, if you have players all over the park that yesterday, and you saw it yesterday, because when Atalanta put Leverkusen under pressure, they were only able to get out of trouble within the combination. It was all one touch, play in the midfield, play balls around the corner. But Atalanta anticipated on it because they knew they're going to play blind balls around the corner. We're going to be side-on defending, boom, and we win it. There was not one player, when playing out, making a little step over, a little dummy or whatever, to try to get out of trouble. Because it's not been part of the game. It's not been practiced. So I think, and I still believe that in today's game, I still think there is a lot of, if you look at the City team with with Pep Guardiola at the moment, he has got already natural so many players that have that ability. Bernardo Silva, Foden, De Bruyne, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's not really in the midfield. He doesn't have to tell Foden when you get in a 1v1, go on and beat him. He just has got that ability to do it.
Yeah.
But that's right. But if you are working at a team and you've got players that have potential, then it's key you're making sure that you create an environment where those players can get exposed to that, because that makes the difference. That is exactly the conversation that I had with Sir Alex Ferguson, when I soon joined the club, by saying, listen, all that skill development at a younger age group is vital, because when you do it in the ages of 6, 7, 8, 9, and even before, 6, 7, 8, 9, all the way up to 12, create small-sided games. You go into 1v1, 2v2, 3v3s, 4v4s, 2v1, 3v2, 4v3. All that is done. By the time they hit 14, 15, 16, and they know what position they're going to play, and they got introduced to 11v11, they already have that skill set.
Yeah.
And not at all. So all those young players who've been exposed to that, like a Danny Welbeck that I had, and Jesse Lingard, and Marcus Rashford, all of them, you don't have to tell them what a step over is and all that. It's there.
Yeah.
But I managed to convince Sir Alex Ferguson, even now, with those first team players, and some are a little bit more maybe limited than others, but you can still gain between 1% and 5%.
Yeah.
Now, if every player gets 1% better, that's already 10%.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And that 10% is probably going to win you more games, and therefore a bigger chance to win trophies. And that's was his thinking. That's why he supported me in doing that. And it was great. And it baffles me a little bit that in the modern day game that I doubted whether there's a lot of emphasis on that aspect of the game.
Yeah, and again, it's even thinking back to your time at United, Giggs, Ronaldo, lads going at people direct, Rooney, being able to break the line is massive. And just for yourself, right, as a person, what were your takeaway points from working with Sir Alex? What did you learn from him in terms of developing yourself as a person, like the attributes that you could have used in management and coaching, kind of moving on from United?
It was, when you're in it, you don't necessarily realize it. You do probably after, but first of all, I have to say, I enjoyed every minute.
Yeah.
Every minute of it, Dennis. There was not one day, and I said, if you are, whether, Mick Feeney was the assistant manager, or me, the first team coach, and Tony Strudwick, the strength and conditioning, like I said, what I mentioned to you before, we knew the ambitions, expectations, etc., etc. And that brings pressure. I never felt any kind of negative pressure when I worked for Man United. Never once.
Yeah.
And that is a massive credit to the way that Sir Alex Ferguson managed on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
He was a great communicator. More than anything, he was a great delegator. And there's not many around. Delegation is a quality.
Yeah.
And the only way to be able to delegate is that you trust your people around it. He used to say to me, listen, René, if I wouldn't trust you, I might as well do it myself.
Yeah.
So I do it because it frees up a lot of time for him in other things. Because being a first team coach and training every day is a very demanding job. You constantly need to think about, and again, like I said, when I did my training sessions always revolved around 5 key points. There was always a purpose to what we were doing. There was always a challenge, and as players, especially that elite level, they need to be challenged, right? The sessions always revolved around quality and intensity. Those are interlinked. Yeah, so if the intensity is too low, too slow, it's not game realistic. If the intensity is too high, then people start to rush things and therefore make mistakes.
Yeah.
So you need to fine line. But if you tick those 4 things, purpose, challenge, quality, intensity, players enjoy it.
Yeah.
That's what they want. And even it doesn't matter how much money they get paid a week or in a month or whatever. That's by the by. Every player on that pitch, exceptions over obviously will always be there, but the majority, they just love the game,
Yeah.
And when you put good sessions on, they enjoy it, and that brings the best out of players, and that is the one thing. So if you look at, I got that question a lot about what made Sir Alex Ferguson stand out so much, and why was he such an outstanding manager, and those are the things I just mentioned there. But first and foremost, his personality, his charisma.
Yeah.
Great sense of humor. There was not a day we didn't laugh.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
he loved to take the mickey out of people, and vice versa. You know, it wasn't a problem. You know, when you sometimes took the mickey out of him, he would say scandalous.
Yeah.
You know, and all the things. So his expertise, experience, you know, that has grown over the years playing in the Premier League. Because the time when I came, he had such a vast experience about the Premier League. You know, he knew it like the inside of his,
Yeah.
you know, the pocket in his pants. Um, the ability to bring the right people to the club,
Yeah.
you know, because I think you might have heard it, but he said when I started at Man United, I had 8 people with me, working with me and for me. And he says now, and that was, let's say in 2012, 13, at the end of his career, he said, I've got more than Marks and Spencer's, which means how much the club has grown.
Yeah.
What I mean? So it's obviously important for him, you know, to be as a leader, you know, you need to have vision. And that vision was very clear to him, you know, how to become successful on the short term, the medium, and how to maintain success on the longer term. His management, his man management is obviously important. His decision making. People always say, you know, good management and good leadership is all about decision making. No, good management and good leadership is making the right decisions at the right time.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of managers, they will all make decisions, but if you make the wrong one, that's not good management. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there is a defined and the distinct difference there. And I think the delegation that I mentioned to him is such an important with his communication skill. Apart from he was obviously a very good communicator, he was a very good listener.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very, very good listener. And his last but not least, his adaptability.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at him when he started at Man United in '86, he's built 3 successful teams of Manchester United. To be able to do that, you need to go with the times.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
need to be able to, you know, to keep pace and like I said, you know, bring the people along on the journey that can help you, you know, complete that next step.
Yeah. Um, I was scrolling through Instagram there only recently, and I saw the video from the Chelsea game where was it McPhelan got the balloon and burst the balloon and Fergie went mad. Were you on the bench that day?
I was, man. I nearly had a heart attack. I'm saying, fucking, you know, I went, you know, I said to Ferguson, I think we've got to be somebody shooting at us. But yeah, that was a comical moment. I remember after that in January, we went for in Japan to play for the World Club.
Yeah.
And Simon Wells and we always prepared the video meetings. And then when we were ready, Ferguson would come in, you know, so we could show him what we were going to show the players and what I would say to the players. And if there's anything you wanted to add or leave out or whatever. So we did that and we were ready. And so basically we had 15 minutes to spare before the players were coming in. And I said to the boss, have you ever watched that balloon incident in Chelsea? And he says, I remember it. I've never seen it. It says, Simon, put it on. So Simon Wells put it on a big screen and he watched it and he absolutely pissed himself laughing. And he said, show me again, show me again. And we watched it. We watched it about 10 times. We still had it on when the players were walking in.
Yeah.
So they were obviously laughing, you know, about it. So
Yeah.
we kept repeating it, you know what I mean?
Very good.
And it was a great moment, but he was in tears.
That was brilliant. Yeah, no, I can remember because it's just his reaction, and he fucks McPhelan. McPhelan ends up laughing. Really, really good. We obviously saw you as well at the helm of a Premier League club, Fulham at the time. How was that experience for you?
A bit of an unexpected one, Dennis, to be honest, because prior to that, obviously, it was my departure from you know, a bit of an unexpected departure from Manchester United as well, because obviously Sir Alex retiring and David Moyes coming in and different changes and everything. And I looked at different sort of Fulham was, you know, inquired quite early, but I was a bit hesitant. I was looking at other options as well, and I've got an opportunity before I joined Fulham. I got an opportunity to go and join Guus Hiddink at Anzi Magatskala, but there was some, you know, some whatever troubles there was with the ownership and everything, so that collapsed fairly quickly. So then Fulham came again, and I looked obviously closely at it, and Martin Jol was the head coach there, and which is great. I like Martin as a coach and as a person, and we got along really well. So he was keen to bring me in. I said, okay, it's at the moment I've got nothing to do, so I might as well go and help you and see it out to the end of the season. At least I stay in the Premier League and I know what it's like. But the strange thing was that after 2 games, we played at home against Swansea, I think, and away to West Ham. And then suddenly Martin was gone. And I still remember training the players that didn't play after the West Ham game in the morning. And then I said, listen, I'm going to shoot off just across the road because I need to sort some things out for my temporary place. So it was a DFS furniture shop. And my phone kept beeping, because somebody wanted to call me. And I thought, that's a bit weird. But anyway, I didn't make much out of it. And then I went in the car and I turned the radio on. And then suddenly I heard Jim White saying Martin Jol has left Fulham by mutual consent and René Meulensteen has been put in charge.
Wow.
And I was like, what? So I did have a chat, obviously, with Alistair McIntosh at the time. And I sort of explained my concerns.
Yeah.
About the makeup of the squad still. There were plenty of good players, but a lot of them were in the 30s, some of them in the middle 30s. A lot of them were running out of the contracts. So basically my question was, what are you going to do? What are you going to do to try to keep them in the Premier League? And I also said the first 10 games that I are going to be in charge, 6 or 7 of them are in the top 10.
Yeah.
You look at the end of the season, the last 10 games, then it was only 2.
Yeah.
So that's not a worry, but we need to see how how everything goes. But it was disappointing at the end because I do feel that we were definitely moving in the right direction. We had this unexpected 2-2 draw at Old Trafford, and then 3 days later we lost in the last minute by a penalty against Liverpool, by a very, very silly penalty. And in all that time, I never had a chance, really. I never had a week that I could work and prepare the team from week to week. And you know how it goes, man. It's when you work on a Saturday, you got recovery, first day of recovery, second day of recovery, or it's already match day -2, match day -1, and you go again. So there is not much really time that you could do. So after that Liverpool game, we had 10 days off, and it was the first time for me, to give the players a break.
Yeah.
A little bit. And then I said, okay, give them 3 days off, and then we pick it up again. And then we would have had a sequence of games with West Brom, Aston Villa, Cardiff City, all games that we could have picked up. We could have picked up some points, but it wasn't to be because they felt they needed to make a change, and obviously they brought. Which I was made aware of by one of my German friends that saw them, in Germany. So I was a bit aware of that, but it didn't help Fulham. You see where they ended up, and I really think, honestly, yes, looking back and in hindsight, I said it before, hindsight is a great thing. Should have done things differently. Yes, I would have probably, because I felt when I took over and you're coming from a Man United environment, what I just described, it was all 80-20 or 75-5. In Fulham, you are looking more in situations for 60-40 or 50-50. You know what I mean? Because that's the level that you are. So, and we came off a bit of a spell where the player sort of lost a little bit of belief and excitement how to play. So I first wanted to get the energy back in the team.
Yeah.
Come on, let's, apart from let's play on the front foot and play attacking football. And we got that going, but we narrowly missed one of the few games. Unfortunately, Tottenham, for instance, if VAR would have existed then, we would have never lost that game.
Yeah.
Because the penalty wasn't a penalty and the goal from Defoe was offside.
Yeah.
But those are fine margins, but I wanted to get that. But when I would have got that right in the first 3 or 4 games, I should have probably been a little bit more making sure that we were a little bit more assured at the back. Let me just say, okay, even if we go away with a draw, don't concede for a few games. and build from there.
Yeah.
Because I came from a club that was always like, come on, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And I needed that time, that break as well, to reflect as well. You know, that
Yeah.
time, you know, then I could have really looked back and reflect and say, okay, now we've got a few good players in. I brought William Quist in, I brought Hulby in, I brought a few other players in, which brought some new energy, you know, within the team. And I was quite confident
Yeah.
in carrying on. And so, yeah, in hindsight, it didn't last that long, but I wasn't, not overly happy when, you know, when they got rid of me, and especially not in the situation how they got me in the job in the first place.
Yeah. And would you still have aspirations to be in charge of your team in the Premier League as manager?
Well, well, you have to realise, Dennis, I'm 60 now.
Are you 60 now? Jeez, you
Yeah,
don't look it.
yeah, I know you
You're
wouldn't say
fresh for
that.
60.
You wouldn't say that. No, but I think, you know, you never say never, but you need to sometimes get the rub of the green, mate.
Yeah.
To have, and I always remember Sir Alex Ferguson said, don't pick the club, pick the owners.
Okay.
You need to have owners that believe in you, and every manager. I'm all for managers giving time, but I'm also realistically enough, because I do feel that every manager should at least have about 18 months, because after those 18 months, give and take, sometimes it can go quicker, but give and take, you then really need to see the hand of the coach. You need to see a certain style, a certain identity. You need to see certain performance levels. If you look, for instance, what Oliver Glasner has done at Crystal Palace, amazing.
Yeah.
He's turned it instantly around. And that can only be, one, they've had the quality to do it. Secondly, the players have been very receptive, right from the word go, and he has been very clear in getting his message across. Now, bang, if you then get the performances turn into results, you know, the confidence floods in, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And everything becomes easier, and that is what you need. Now, I've obviously had various little management stints in various parts in the world, and basically run into the same, you know, the same problems, really, the emotional short-sightedness of all, you know, rather than just hold on a minute, you know, just calm. But I'm, like I said, I've always had the ambition to work on the national team, on the international scene, because I do feel, especially more now than ever, is that international football is the purest form of professional football that exists. Because all club football is decided by money, and therefore fall everywhere.
Yeah.
So the teams that have got the most money will win the trophies, win international trophies, win domestic trophies, will get promotion, etc., etc., etc. Whereas international football, you work in a country, and first of all, you need to have a strong culture of football. And when it's right, you got an infrastructure with facilities and environment and resources. You can do something. But I always had an ambition to do it. I always had an ambition to go to the World Cup, which I managed to do with Australia, and it was fantastic. I really enjoyed it.
That's amazing, because obviously now Ireland is looking for a manager at the moment. John O'Shea is kind of linked to it. Obviously now I'm from Cork as well, so obviously Ireland. So you would have worked with the likes of Roy Keane, John O'Shea. What were those personalities like to work with, especially Roy Keane? Because I'm a huge Roy Keane fan.
Yeah, great. Well, Roy, I've got to know him. Obviously, he was there, and funny enough, when I took charge of the reserve team, there was a few moments where he joined in with myself, and he enjoyed those sessions. I used Roy a little bit more than just a player. I always had a chat with him and says, "Listen, Roy, these are the sort of things that I'm looking for. But it would be good if it comes from you." So in other words, like, if you get the ball from the right back, what do you expect from your left winger? What do you expect from the number 10? What do you expect from the fullback, for instance, if the left winger comes inside? That sort of stuff. So I made him almost player coach.
Yeah.
You know
Okay. Okay.
And he enjoyed it. He enjoyed those sessions. I told him, you know, the sessions where they are revolved around, and you know, Roy doesn't beat about the bush. He's straightforward, you know, and I've always tremendously respected him as a player. and respect him as a person. And with Roy, is what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
John, great guy. I'm not sure whether it was one of the first ones, but I congratulated him straight away when he was given the interim job. It's a fantastic honour. See, I'm Dutch, but I'm working with obviously the Australian national team, and I see how proud those players are to travel from one side of the world to the other to represent the countries. It's really unbelievable, and that's for John to experience that with Ireland having himself a great international career, a great club career, and John is just a very, a totally different personality than obviously Roy, but very, very measured, very good guy. I'm sure that the players respond to him.
Yeah.
But let's see what happens over there.
Yeah, we're waiting to see what happens ourselves.
I'm a bit surprised that they haven't appointed yet anybody. So I'm a bit surprised.
Yeah, look, we were told that we were given a certain point, and it moved. So I suppose I don't even know when they're looking to appoint it. And I suppose just getting to Man United now, I suppose, firstly, what do you think's gone wrong since Alex Ferguson left? Now, obviously, David Moyes came in, he brought in his own staff, and obviously hindsight's a great thing, but I know it would have probably made sense to keep maybe yourself or some of the staff on board who knew the players, knew the style, who knew the culture. But I suppose in terms of the number of managers that's been there, and realistically, it's probably been limited enough success. I know there was a UEFA Cup with Mourinho, there's been an FA Cup here or there, League Cup, or League Cups even. But so what's kind of gone wrong from the juggernaut that Sir Alex had to where we are now?
I think you go back to what I said before, Dennis, in terms of what does a successful organization look like, and and it starts with the ownership, and with the ownership, the support has been there in respect to, the financial support, for the coaches and everything, but there has been no connection whatsoever with the ownership in terms of the Glazers. An emotional connection for them with Manchester United and what they stand for. It's been a distant connection where basically they've got their own agendas and interests to why they want to be the owners of Manchester United, which not necessarily serves the purpose. Now, they were there when Sir Alex was there, people would say, and that was great, but the reason why it didn't affect it was because at that time, Sir Alex Ferguson and David Gill together, they were such a strong team backed by a very strong board with Bobby Charlton and other people that they just were made very aware of to leave that part of the club alone and trust Sir Alex and everybody involved with David Gill to get it sorted, which it was. Now, as soon as that changed and other people came to fill in those strategic positions, that's where the problem started, because they weren't competent in filling those positions. The managers have come in different managers. David Moyes, like I said before, everybody is and should be given time. I think if you ask David again, be honestly, and he would be honest about it, I do think he would probably say, I would have done things slightly different. But then you get some really high-profile managers like Van Gaal, and then after Mourinho, and who all have got their own personal agendas. And I think the biggest thing where that went wrong is because Sir Alex Ferguson has brewed up the most difficult performance cocktail that can be, because it was all about winning with United, but at the same time playing attractive and attacking style.
Yeah.
And Van Gaal wasn't able to do it because he has got a very strong mindset about how he wants the game to play, which is possession based, and which got laboured and slow with hardly any, attempts on goal or shots on goal.
Yeah.
Mourinho is very pragmatic.
Yeah.
It's all about winning. It's not about entertaining the crowd. So that's where it went wrong in terms of his connection with what the fans saw on the pitch and what he was trying to do. although there was probably other things wrong behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Then you got Ole as a stopgap, who obviously started like a house on fire, but that had nothing to do in that respect with Ole, because you could have put Ryan Giggs there or Rio Ferdinand or any ex-player, because it was more like a case of the bad teacher leaving and a new teacher coming in.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody responds, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the moment, as soon as they start giving Ole the job permanently, you saw suddenly the performances and the results, and it fell into this inconsistent kind of trajectory where, again, they changed, and then Ranjik came in, and Ranjik did nothing else than basically analyze and look at every aspect of the club, and basically, saw so many aspects that were wrong on and off the pitch, which he has been documented, and so has Cristiano.
Yeah.
In that respect. And then obviously Den Haag comes in, and now you got the same discussion again. Should he be given more time? Should he go? There's so many managers there, this and that, the other. Now, obviously, there has been a lot of changes behind the scenes with Ratcliffe coming in and all the people he wants to get involved, Brailsford and Barretta and Wilcox and all of them. And I'm sure that they are working hard, first and foremost, behind the scenes to paint the picture for them. Okay, what's the current situation? What is the situation where we need to get to?
Yeah.
What does need to happen?
Yeah.
In terms from the squad setup, in terms of the manager as well, and so it's going to be an interesting few weeks ahead of us.
And I suppose, to put you on the spot, should Erik ten Hag be given more time, or should United be looking for a new manager?
You can put me on the spot, all right. Like I said before, I always feel that managers should be given enough time. And with Erik, it is, and I do know him obviously personally. I know him from his time at Ajax, and he's a good coach. And I'm sure that he's not the only worrying thing for me. And what I've seen is, like I said, after managers have been with clubs 18 months, you want to see a kind of a recognizable style, an identity.
Yeah.
And that is the worrying thing at this moment in time, that I feel we haven't seen that. He had a fairly good season first year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With winning the League Cup, getting to the FA Cup final. Everybody was quite pleased about that, getting into the Champions final. And then he goes into his second 6 months, of that 18 months. And you think, great, fantastic base to now build on. So now we kick on.
Yeah.
But instead we kicked on, we've regressed.
Yeah.
No way about it. There's no doubts about it. You can look at all the numbers and stats, no matter what Erik says, but the numbers don't add up. The 14 games that we've lost, minus 1 or 2 goal difference, out of the group stages of the Champions League. You can name all this, and it doesn't make good reading.
Yeah.
That's the worrying thing for me. Yes, he keeps talking about that I had so many injuries. I can understand you've got so many injuries. We are Man United. And when you have Man United, you have a squad. And the structure and the organization should always be the same.
Yeah.
That shouldn't change.
Yeah.
But if we look at the amount of under-par performances that we've seen this year, it worries me, in that respect, whether if he does stay, does he going to get it right? Because the one element that I missed, remember the points that I said to you, Dennis, quality players, world-class qualities, work hard, compete, teamwork, team spirit. In those two, I have got question marks.
Yeah.
Already.
Yeah.
Never mind the first one. There's a lot of question marks there about certain players, but I also got question marks about number 1 and number 2 and number 3.
Yeah.
And if that is a worrying sign.
Yeah.
And myself, although I would love to give him more time, I really do. Would I be saying, don't worry about it, he will get it 100% on track, 100%? On the basis and on what I've seen over the last season, I doubt it.
Yeah. It just seems to be a really, really, I'm guessing any manager job is a difficult job, but for United, obviously, when you just see so many people kind of come in, whether it be players or managers that are kind of struggling with, I suppose, the mantle of it being Man United. So it's going to be interesting to see how they progress, and obviously the FA Cup final coming up. I'm guessing City will probably be hot favourites for that.
It should be, but it's a one-off game, and there you go. I mean, I would imagine there is some kind of a. It all depends who you can play in the back four.
Yeah.
Because if you has to make a makeshift, back four situation again, and like I said, I mean, I love Johnny Evans. I worked with him obviously at Manchester United, and he's a top professional. But you can't expect him with 35 years of age, to be a top centre back defender for a club the size of Manchester United. I mean, what are we talking about? But obviously, Martinez is obviously maybe back, but obviously he's not played too many games.
Yeah.
All that depends, but I would expect, at least for the players themselves, how often do you get a chance to play at Wembley, for a trophy and to win a trophy? So I hope there's an element of personal pride shows up on Saturday, and the willingness to work, like I said, to work hard, to compete, work together, and show some spirit. That's all. That's all. What every United fan is asking.
Yeah.
I think, and then you can still, if Man City then turns up to be still the by far the better team because they got more quality, if they play better football, you hold your hand up, because that is where they are. I mean, Man City is the champions again, and I don't know how many points we are behind. So, there is some ground to make up.
I love throughout this when you talk about Man United, you keep saying we. So there's obviously some great love and passion for the club there.
Yeah, it'll never change.
Brilliant, absolutely. That's fantastic. We're nearly done. I just have 5 quick fire questions, and we're out the gap. Who has been your favorite player that you've coached in your career, and why?
If I single one out, I would do no justice to all the others.
Okay, fair enough.
Honestly, because I wouldn't. I couldn't. Because what I felt at my time, Man United, working with that squad, it was amazing. I mean, never once we had a situation where I felt, I looked at McPherson or the manager, they're not at it today or whatever. They're all absolutely brilliant, and every player brings something different to that squad. And they made my job easy.
Yeah,
I just had to make sure that I was doing the right thing, that the players kept responding and turned those training sessions into performances and results. And that was my whole thing.
And what has been your most memorable moment throughout your career?
The most memorable one, there was a few obviously last minute goals that will always spring to mind straight away when you get it. The one against Man City that Michael Owen scored, which was incredible.
Yeah, right.
The one that Kiko Makeda scored against Aston Villa. The Arsenal games that we played in the sequence in the Cup and Champions League, we were absolutely lethal at the time. We were just so good and quick, and obviously, the one as well that Robin van Persie scores against Aston Villa, where that's a goal that came straight from the training ground.
Yeah,
it sealed our last Premier League, which was so special because I had a good relationship with Robin about him joining Manchester United, and I still remember having a discussion with Sir Alex Ferguson about the number he should wear at his back, and there was few numbers. There was only 2 numbers, and one was number 20.
Yeah.
And I was happened to be to standing around when he asked the question. I said, Robin, can only be number 20, mate. That's why you're here. You're here to win us the 20th league. So that's what's going to be. And to then score that goal was very memorable.
And where has been your favorite city that you've visited with any team you've been with? Or favorite city or even destination, let's say?
Oh, there's so many. So many, man. Sydney is definitely one of my favorite cities. Brilliant. I love Chicago. I love New York when we were there on pre-season as Man United. I love those places. A lot of character. All of them.
And can you think of any funny incidents that happened during training or matches that kind of come to mind? I know we talked about one with the balloon already.
Yeah, you talked about with the balloon, yeah. Bloody hell. Nah. Not direct. Oh yeah, maybe the one with Scholesy. I still remember that. We were playing. The few players was um, Thomas Kuzak, Scholesy, Owen Hargreaves, and myself. We were playing 2v2 head tennis.
Yeah.
At the end, on the pitch just behind Carrington, and so it was only the four of us. I don't know why. Anyway, with all the players, but anyway, they were gone, and we were playing head tennis. And then suddenly we hear this sound coming close, and this chopper landed, behind us, about, I would say, 30, 40 meters away, just on the other side, and Scholesy saw the thing coming, and he picked up a ball and he just lifted it up and hit a volley, and it fucking hit it hit the back rotor, and only the ball flew into like 1,000 pieces. You know what I mean? And the guy, one of the pilots, obviously got out, and must have heard something, but didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
And it was obviously the chopper that to pick Sir Alex up, because he was going. I think it was going to Peterborough or somewhere, or whatever, where he needed to go with the thing. And I said to Scholesy, I hope you haven't done any damage, mate, because otherwise that thing will be going all over the place.
And final question: this was, what advice would you give to any aspiring coach or player listening to this podcast?
I think a lot of young aspiring coaches, they've got a big advantage of like, say, inspiring coaches. Let's say when I started out, like in the 70s and 80s, because now there's so much good information on the internet.
Yeah.
Study, learn from the best, read up on the best coaches. There's so much information to read up and look at in terms of the way that there's so many good coaching books and everything. But more than anything, create a vision that you believe in. You have to obviously do your badges and your coaching badges and all this and that and the other, and try to find out what your niche is, what you're good at. If you are very good with working with very young kids at a young age group, then focus on that. Don't necessarily want to be the next Pep.
Yeah.
What I mean, because the most important thing for all those young kids that are even 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years of age, all those young kids that aspire to become a professional player, they need the best coaches that they can get. And those jobs are by far more important than, in my opinion, than the ones that, are running the Premier League clubs with all the pressures that come with it.
Yeah, okay. That's brilliant. René, we've come to the end, my friend, and I just want to thank you. We've been chatting for an hour and 20 minutes. I want to thank you so much for your time.
Oh, and 20 minutes?
Yeah. It's been brilliant. It's been absolutely brilliant. I want to thank you so much for your time. It's given me insights to your career, insights to Man United. And as a Man United fan, I've loved it. So I just want to say thanks so much.
No problem. No problem, Dennis. And thanks for having me on.
No problem. Bye. Thank you.